The Fitterist Show with your host, Christopher Allen, where we explore the art of mind and body conditioning. This week, we take a look at 3 different health and wellness news stories that have been in the headlines during the past week. Up first is a study that estimates that half of Americans will be obese by 2030 and the implications of this epidemic. Next up is a study pontificating the amount of protein one should consume on a daily basis, both from a baseline and an optimal performance perspective. And finally, we examine nitric oxide, its role in your overall health, and how you can naturally increase nitric oxide for health and performance benefits. So let's dive in. First up is a new study that basically says half of America will be obese within 10 years. So it's a study led by Harvard and George Washington University scientists, and they recently published in the New England Journal of Medicine predicting that half of America will be obese within the next 10 years. Now, obesity has been a recurring topic on the Fitterist Show, and this study hopefully adds to the heightened awareness of this crushing epidemic. Some of the specific statistics that the study indicates that the prevalence of obesity will be higher than 50% in 29 states and not below 35% obesity in any state. That means that there's not one state out of 50 that doesn't have 35% of its population classified as obese. Another data point, nearly 1 in 4 adults is projected to have severe obesity by 2030, and the prevalence will be higher than 25% severe obesity in 25 states. So half of the states will have 25% or more severely obese population. Just as reference point, severely obese means that you have a body mass index over 35, which generally means the person will be around 100 pounds overweight. 25% in 25 states, 100 pounds or more overweight. Wow. If these trends continue nationally, severe obesity, which is again, about 100 pounds of excess weight, will become the most common BMI or body mass index category. That's crazy. This is pretty devastating news for the health of our country as a whole. And remember, the cost to society is exorbitant. The obesity-related health consequences, the obesity-related healthcare costs are spiraling out of control. The methodology of this study was analyzing a self-reported body mass index data from over 6 million, about 6.3 million adults, all of which were 18 years of age or older, and who participated in what was called the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System Survey. It's a mouthful, but it ran from 1993 to 94 and 1999 to 2016. And the categories were generally underweight, which is BMI less than 25, overweight with a BMI of 25 to 30, moderate obesity 30 to 35, and severe obesity with a BMI rating of 35 or higher. One of the other findings from the study was that for very low-income adults, so these are adults with less than $20,000 annual household income, severe obesity will be the most common BMI category in 44 states. 50 years ago, obesity was relatively a rare condition. People who were poor were just generally underweight, not overweight, but that's changed. So why has that changed in the last 50 years? Well, there's a number of factors, as always, but one is in the rise of sugar-sweetened beverages and ultra-processed foods, which contribute a lot of calories but very little nutrition. Number 2, the price of food, including these processed foods and unhealthy fast food choices, have actually fallen in America when you adjust for inflation. And a third leg of that stool is lack of physical activity. The study also postulates, okay, this is bad, it's getting worse. What needs to happen to start on a path to fix obesity? Well, in a very simplistic state, you should basically tell people to eat less, exercise more. But obesity is a much more complex and much more staggeringly difficult problem to solve. We've discussed different approaches in episode 35 of the Fitter Show. You can go back and check that episode if you're interested in learning about different approaches that have been postulated. And this study also proposes 3 promising approaches. They didn't come up with these. They just said these are the approaches that were basically backed by a Harvard study that showed each of the initiatives that saved more in healthcare costs than it actually cost to implement. And I'll link to these in the show notes at www.fitters.com/043 for episode 43. These 3 initiatives are, number 1, eliminate the tax deduction businesses get for advertising unhealthy foods to children. The money that they spend on advertising foods can basically be written off as a tax deduction, so closing that loophole, number 1. Initiative number 2, that's backed by this Harvard study that shows, again, payback, more saved in healthcare costs than it costs to implement. Number 2, improve nutrition standards for all foods, all snacks, all beverages, basically anything sold within schools. Obesity that starts early in childhood and in teenage years is very, very difficult to correct. It's difficult enough trying to solve obesity in adults, but when it's deeply rooted and starts early in life, it's just that much more difficult. And initiative number 3 that they recommend is imposing an excise tax on sugary beverages. And again, there's pros and cons to those approaches, but at least those are 3 that they say, hey, it's going to save more in healthcare costs than it will actually cost to implement. So it's very difficult to treat obesity. So efforts obviously need to focus on prevention at the earliest possible age, as eating habits, both good and bad, are established and formed early in a child's life. On a positive note, the study also cited that the CDC reported declining obesity rates among preschoolers on government food aid in June. Obesity rates among these children fell from 16% in 2010 to around 14% in 2016. So not a huge change, but positive change in the right direction. So there's still lots of work to do, but dents can be made to help reverse this costly epidemic. On to news headline number 2. This headline refers to a study that talks about how much protein should we be eating. Now, this is a study out of Purdue University that tackles the question of protein intake and what's the optimal amount of protein one should consume. Now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, requirements for males 19 to 50 is 56 grams per day of protein, and for females, 46 grams per protein per day, as part of a roughly 2,000 calorie daily diet. And I'll link to the full USDA requirements in the show notes for those interested in the details. Now, I think lots of people get confused by USDA requirements because in general they represent the amount of a given nutrient you need to meet your basic nutritional requirements. In kind of a sense, it's the minimum amount you need to keep from getting sick and passing out or something like that, not the specific amount you're supposed to eat every day. So in my opinion, it's not an overly useful number, as not many people are asking the question of, hey, how little protein should I consume so I don't get sick? What's that threshold that I can just teeter on the borderline of I'm alive and okay, but I'm not getting sick? And that's that 56/46 grams if you are a female. The range of the food sources from which to get protein includes obviously seafood, meats, poultry, eggs, nuts, seeds, soy products. The methodology that the scientists looked at for this study was the examination of more than 1,500 articles on nutrition that they found in different nutritional databases. And from these, they found 18 papers for closer examination. So together, those 18 papers encompassed 22 interventions involving about 980 individuals. So the data revealed that for everyday life, when individuals are neither gaining nor losing weight, eating more than the recommended amount of protein does not do anything for body composition. Increasing the intake of protein only provides benefits in certain circumstances. And what are those? Basically, if you have a higher intake of protein, it only enhances lean mass in people who are consciously dieting or engaging in weight training, which in my opinion seems a little ironic because almost everybody is either dieting or exercising to build some amount of lean muscle mass. So anyway, my take, it's like the research was intended to confirm a baseline floor of protein consumption for general kind of healthy, basically sedentary, I don't really move people, which seems like a recipe to keep people on the border of not being sick, but still being alive and generally able to function and be sedentary. And who the hell strives or wants that? That's not most people's goal. So I guess knowing that baseline could keep one from getting ill, but I think some of these studies seem like they're about a decade out of date. Almost every nutritionist and dietitian would recognize that exercise, movement, resistance training are part of an overall health plan. Thus, right off the bat, you're going to need a higher amount of protein intake because you're not completely sedentary. You don't just sit there like a blob all day. Although, one could argue that the previous story on obesity would say, yes, we do. As a society, we pretty much just sit there. Point taken. But when and how you consume protein, spread out throughout the day, all in one sitting, 2 meals per day, etc., all have an impact on the body's ability to assimilate protein and other nutrients. Everyone's dietary needs are slightly different depending on a number of variables: your lifestyle, your metabolism, the genetics that you have, your activity level, the number of meals per day you consume, your exercise, etc., But in my opinion, almost all instances, the protein intake should be closer to about 25% of the daily caloric intake rather than the roughly, it's almost a little under 10% guidepost by the basic USDA requirement. And now, in the news, article number 3. Our third news story this week is, what is nitric oxide and how can you naturally increase it? Now, nitric oxide is produced by nearly every type of cell in the human body and one of the most important molecules for blood vessel health. It allows blood, nutrients, and oxygen to travel to every part of your body effectively and efficiently. Nitric oxide, or NO as it sometimes is abbreviated, NO production, it's essential for overall health because it's a vasodilator, meaning that it relaxes the inner muscles of your blood vessels, causing the vessels to widen. In this way, nitric oxide increases blood flow, lowering blood pressure. Some of the other health and performance benefits of taking nitric oxide supplements or increasing nitric oxide could be the following. It may decrease your muscle soreness, could lower blood pressure, could increase your exercise performance, help manage type 2 diabetes, and help treat erectile dysfunction. So given some of those benefits, what are the best ways to increase your NO or nitric oxide production naturally? Well, there are 4 kind of major areas. First, number 1 is exercise. Exercise obviously kind of gets your blood pumping, and it aids that thin layer of cells that line the blood vessels. These cells produce nitric oxide, which helps keep the blood vessels healthy, as we just discussed. So exercise keeps your endothelial cells and blood vessels healthy, increases your body's natural ability to produce nitric oxide. For optimal results, you want to kind of combine aerobic training, walking, jogging, with anaerobic training, such as resistance training. That way, the different types of exercise you choose can help you continue your exercise habit to improve your overall nitric oxide production and blood vessel health. Number 2 is using nitric oxide boosting supplements. This is the area I'm probably most familiar with because a lot of bodybuilding and pre-workouts contain NO boosting ingredients. And these supplements, they don't contain nitric oxide per se, but they include ingredients that help form nitric oxide in your body. And 2 of the more common ingredients in these nitric oxide boosting supplements are L-citrulline and L-arginine. Now, L-citrulline increases the levels of L-arginine in your body more than supplementing with L-arginine itself does. Seems odd, but it's because a large percentage of arginine is broken down before it actually reaches your bloodstream. In both L-arginine and citrulline are used to produce nitric oxide in your body. They're amino acids, and they're available as supplements that have beneficial effects on vascular health and overall blood flow. So number 3 is to consume more antioxidants. Now, antioxidants help decrease the breakdown and extend the life of nitric oxide in your body. So when you don't have antioxidants, the nitric oxide that you do have gets broken down more quickly. So as you consume more antioxidants, they actually slow down the decay of nitric oxide in your body. So what are some of the sources of antioxidants? Well, it's the usual suspects. Vitamin C helps your body, connective tissues, skin, bones, tendons, cartilage. Vitamin E protects the cells from damaging effects of free radicals, which are thought to contribute to aging and disease. Polyphenols, which is a category of antioxidants associated with health benefits, including reduced risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease. And finally, glutathione, which is sometimes referred to as the king of antioxidants. It's a master antioxidant and detoxifies almost every cell in the body. And the fourth and final way to naturally increase your nitric oxide production is eating vegetables that are high in nitrates. Vegetables are a good source of nitrates, which actually helps form nitric oxide in your body. So when you eat nitrate-rich vegetables, it improves your overall heart health, improves blood vessel health, and improves exercise performance. What are some of the vegetables that are high in nitrates? Celery, lettuce, beetroot, something I take, spinach, arugula, and these nitrates then are converted into nitric oxide, which confers a wide range of health benefits to your heart and blood vessels. In fact, there's been some studies that actually show that eating nitrate-rich vegetables can lower your blood pressure as much as some blood pressure medications. So again, I know I take beetroot. It seems to help. Anyway, nitric oxide is an essential molecule required for overall health. As a vasodilator, it signals those blood vessels to relax, which causes them to expand, thus lowering overall blood pressure. So this expansion also allows blood, nutrients, and oxygen to flow much more freely to every part of your body. Therefore, it's important to achieve and maintain optimal levels of nitric oxide in the body. So there you have it. There's a little bit of 411 on nitric oxide and how it can help you with a more healthy lifestyle, lowering your blood pressure, lots of good benefits. We'll catch you next week. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to The Fitterist Show. You can follow us on Instagram at FitteristMindBody and on Twitter at FitteristMind. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to a friend or subscribe to make sure you don't miss any future episodes of The Fitterist Show. My name is Christopher Allen, and make it a magical day.